We're here today with Ron Cross, a legal researcher and investigator with the Oklahoma City Bombing Investigation Committee, formed and led by Oklahoma State Representative Charles Key. He has compiled some very interesting documents for the Paul Revere Institute, and will be covering briefly what these documents are and how they impact our lives. Ron, why did you start researching?
Well, let me say this. Back about in the late 1980s, I was out at Fort Sill here in Oklahoma, and what I actually saw was Russian troops doing a nuclear inspection. Later that same year, I saw Chinese troops, and it began me, at that point in time, I began to wonder what was really going on. It wasn't until a couple of years later, after I'd married, that I got involved in research, just due to asking questions and hearing things on the radio about what's going on with the United States. So I began buying books and looking into this, and it would refer to documents, and I began to pull those documents and research them. And I would copy them out of the law library, and that's where these documents come from.
So why don't you tell us about the documents you have for us today that we've compiled and put in this booklet for the Paul Revere Society?
Well, I'll show it to you folks. This is the booklet that we've compiled. Basically, what it is it's a collection of a number of documents, and I'll kind of go over some of those with you. We're also going to include a CD. In that CD, I'm going to put in a number of UN documents. I'm also going to put in some laws and things that might help you out, so that you can look at them, share them with your friends and your neighbors. But the reason I put this booklet together was to share my research with other people. Some of what I found, I'm just going to skip past my credentials since you already went past that. I put my credentials on the front of the book so that folks can just see it just wasn't an amateur, somebody that didn't know what they were doing, didn't know how to legal research, that came up with these documents. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you things, the newspaper clippings to start with, that show that the United States is indeed in trouble, that the United Nations has been studying gun control for quite some time.
Is that the one that has to do with the surrender of your sovereignty?
Absolutely, it does mention that, and it talks about State Department 7277, which came out in 1961, in September, I believe, and I actually have a copy of that entire document called Freedom from War within this book.
Okay, and the second topic it had was I guess the federal rights or the federal laws, Constitution, how it can overwrite and overturn any state laws and or Constitution. Is that correct?
Well, we know in the past that the federal government does what they want to do. And what I simply point out is that it is in law that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. We all acknowledge that. But Congress can pass laws that would become part of our overall law of the land. And that's where I do believe, based on my research, are taking us with the United Nations.
Okay, can you show us kind of how to use this information you provided for us today?
Yeah, sure. Probably the best thing to do is, when you're presenting this information to somebody, is you're going to have to get somebody who's open-minded. As an example, if somebody comes to our door and they want to talk to us about religion, and there are certain religions out there that do that, we're prone to just shut the door in their face. So one of the things you have to do is present this information to a willing person. I have found, instead of trying to have battle of minds and wits with folks, what I try to do is capture their interest. And the way that I do that quite often is, a lot of times we talk about the weather, so I may start talking about the weather with somebody and then indiscriminately throw in something like, we haven't gotten any rain lately. I wish they would change the dial on the weather machine to rain. And of course people laugh about it, and I say, believe it or not, the UN actually has environmental treaties that talk about things like rains and tornadic weather, earthquakes and things. And of course, it's inside the book, folks, and I use that. So a lot of people are curious, and from there you can begin to show them some of the documents, or if you got people that are gun rights activists.
So you mean things like weather modification kind of things, like seeding the clouds to make it rain, other experiments like that?
Well, according to Title 15 of the USC's Chapter 9, that you are to actually report to the Secretary of Commerce when you do that. I didn't include that in the book, but that's a fact. So we do know that in 1976, it was listed that weather modification could be a weapon of war. And so they came out with a treaty on it. And I've included that treaty here in the book, and it's a complete treaty. And when you receive this book, what we're going to do is give you a copy of that treaty on CD as well, and you can look it up on the UN website if you have any doubt.
A weapon of war, do you mean like using it to create droughts and things like that, or floods?
It's very possible. Operation Woodpecker, I believe, was something that the Russians used in the late 70s, and at that point in time, to my understanding, that California had its driest record ever at that point in time. So, you know, we know they've listed it as a potential weapon of war, so there must be something to it.
Absolutely. What other documents? I've seen here things about the freedom from war. Can you cover that a little bit?
Yeah, basically the entire document is in this book, and what it does is it basically sets a three-stage disarmament process. And the amazing thing about it, I'll show you the front of it so that you can see it for yourself. Inside that document, it tells you that it's a complete policy. I mean, you can see it right there. And it's the United States policy to totally, completely disarm. And part of that, and I show that further with public law, how that will most likely extend to citizens.
What else can you tell us about weapons confiscation and what states may be doing, and what the United Nations thinks about weapons confiscation?
Well, I do know that here in Oklahoma just recently, our governor passed a bill that basically said that if there is martial law declared, that they couldn't do what they did at Hurricane Katrina. However, the problem there is ultimately we know who controls the National Guard. It is not the governor, it is the federal government. So, you know, it's wishful thinking in the long run, but if the federal government says something and they control the states, then absolutely gun confiscation could happen. And again, our Second Amendment rights have been under attack for a long time. So who knows how soon and under what auspice, you know, they may implement gun control.
What can you tell us about the United Nations Office of Disarmament Affairs?
Well, that's an office that's around it that basically examines arms control, and they look at and try to write policy to affect members so that we're all disarming, so that no nation could cause another nation any problem. So they do get into small arms as being a real problem. You know, first they went after the big weapons, now it's time to go after the smaller weapons, and they've determined that small arms are really a problem because, you know, you get enough guys into any town, village, or city with weapons and they can control it. Rape, rob, and pillage people, so we need to control small arms. That's their idea.
So, from my understanding is there's also parts in here about the banking institutions. And, you know, everybody's heard that the banks run the world. Money makes things go round and round, as it would seem. What can you tell us about the banking institutions in this this collection of documents?
Well, again, I'll show you this. It comes right out of a Senate document. You can see it right there. That part of that document is enclosed in this book. Again, if I were to enclose the entirety of each and every one of these documents, the cost would be much greater. But these are things that people can look up so that they can look these things up for themselves. But what I can tell you is it does name the Rothschilds as being part of the reason, or in Ben Franklin's own words, the reason that the Revolutionary War happened.
And is that enclosed in these documents?
Yes, it is. I have it in black and white.
Okay. The full documents, will they be available on the CD?
Well, some of them will. This stuff here, a lot of this stuff, you know, I copied over 20 years ago, 20 years, and so I don't have them in CD. I may make them available, but what I want to challenge people to do is look at what I have and go look them up for themselves. I mean, go down to their own little library, look it up. I just want to give you enough information that you can go out there and look these things up and see that it's real.
Well, Mr. Cross, I appreciate your time with us today. Thank you for putting all this information together. Hopefully we can do another interview in the future and maybe build upon what we have today.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me cover this quickly. Folks, when you get this from us, what you're going to get is not only the book, we're going to give you a DVD. We're going to give you a copy of, on that DVD, it's going to have a Citizen's Handbook, which is a Constitution and Rule book. You're also going to get the difference between a republic and a democracy. We're going to make available a number of UN documents. We're going to make available a lot of different things for you.
Title 18.
Yeah, Title 18, basically a violation of your civil rights. So when authorities abuse you, same with Title 42. And, you know, we're going to have some other things on there. So you're not just getting this book, you're going to get a lot of information that you can use and share with your neighbors and friends.
Kind of like a little bonus CD. Well, again,
Absolutely.
sir, thank you very much for your time, and thank you all for watching. And hopefully, you'll be buying some of these books to share with your families and friends. God bless you all, and have a safe day.
Thank you.